1. They have removed the tubes from throughout him. She wishes to clutch at her own body, give birth to a language that can say, "It's fine, I'll forgive you if you die, but please just stop shrinking." But he smiles like the million Sundays they've spent together in the past 32 years and says, "I just took my first shit in 4 days. My sphincter is still quivering." He gets up to lay claim to the sterilized room and does a kind of dance, his knobby knees and emaciated frame cooperating, the delicate gown parted and sailing, the drooping parts of his lower body and his exuberant asshole exposed while he twirls and hoots. She has let loose an ocean in the past 2 weeks, so she cackles instead of sobbing. The wilted and wilting man in the bed across the room tries to look away and presses a button to make his position in the world entirely horizontal. Her husband waltzes until he can't. 2. They were here to lie, and the house, not once a home, was perfect for it. A summer vacation property since the early 40s, the windows hardly that, but big mesh things leaking electric whites and yellows onto the untended land. The structure itself held up by visible stilts, the iconic red and white check tablecloth faded, the 3 bedrooms where hundreds of families had come to pretend over the years. One with 2 twin-size mattresses, another with a set of bunk beds, and the master, the container for the adults. In the cabinet in the hallway, stacks and stacks of bath towels and hand towels, and all those in between, all clean though decades old. She took these all in with happiness, stopping later while he used the bathroom at a yellowed piece of paper hung in the kitchen that chilled her. The careful cursive, the sort no longer taught in schools. Instructions on how to close the house for winter. Bring bicycles inside and place in children's room, disconnect water, lock all windows. A checklist that had hung there more than 30 years. They returned to the borrowed car, another element to propagate the weekend's make-believing. 15 minutes later, the Atlantic Ocean, warm and bland, suspended them, and she swam further and further out, waiting for him to urge her return. But he only blinked and waved, like the generous light. Love was a mystery grown boring, or at least somewhere else, and there was much else she needed to understand. 3. We were sitting in her apartment, which is full of things that don't belong to each other. All these eras, sitting and standing and leaning, even the most utilitarian items older than our mothers. So much stolen history that it's almost hard to hold a conversation. A shelf displaying at least 20 century-old glass soda bottles, a jar holding a massive tangle of skeleton keys, a box of a stranger's discarded photos that detail a 1967 vacation to Hawaii. To her credit, there are living things too. There are plants, and she knows their proper names and waters them. I don't mean to say that I disliked her. Quite the opposite, but then there are some films you see and enjoy but never return to. And I had a feeling this might be the case with her, that she'd been watched with fascination and discomfort a great deal. The list went on with rising panic. Glass bottles of milk delivered by a friendly man with an undeniable work ethic, a line of familiar faces at the post office, the dramatic tension of the answering machine or the collect call, the waiting for someone who might be on a subway and might not be, but the willingness to wait nonetheless. Fathers teaching their children how to refold a newspaper, how to address a letter and where to affix the stamps, a limited number of programs on the television. I'm uncomfortable the way we live now, she told me. It's wrong to acquire everything you need sitting in the same chair, she said. How could that be good? How could that possibly be good? She shaped the air in sharp breaks and curves with her hands while she talked. When we fucked, she said my name and expected me to say hers. The bedroom, at least, is bare. Her body is the only thing about her that isn't large or complicated, and so removing her from where she fell asleep on top of me was easy. It was leaving her there, amidst the faded mob rotary phone grieving its forsaken communications, the ancient fan struggling to understand and reinvent the air surrounding it. That wasn't. 4. Thank you. Okay, it's fine. All right. Since trying to exit the world several times, but failing even in that, and receiving electricity in her neural pathways, this woman I love has made it clear that this, like all other things that scratch at her interior, she will not forget. She has tattooed a socket on her forearm. Underneath it reads, "I sing the body electric." No one knows quite what to make of this particular forever, but then it's rare she leaves her nest. She has taken up painting again. Hung on the wall, a colorful portrait of a brain in childish pinks and greens. On it glued a spiral wire that connects to a battery that clings to the thick white paper. The caption drawn by her hand appears over several layers of whiteout. "Absorption continues at an alarming rate," it says. I visit her in her hiding place, and she is present enough to ask me if I'd like a glass of water. This feels large. I say yes and "oh gosh, thank you," instead of "your tiny voice on the telephone haunts me all day," or "I miss you like an arm," or "I wish I were all the drugs in the world so I could repair the museums in your mind and whisper to every part of your body a sweeter song." Here's the last one, and this is an excerpt from my book, 5. Our parents like to say that the first time Jackson and I met, we concentrated our focus so intently, grew so still that they worried our little bodies might have forgotten we'd exited our watery beginnings, neglected the duty to breathe in and out. On the floor of the living room, we turned our still soft skin towards each other and blinked before demonstrating our talents in gripping and releasing, my 5 fingers around his chubby wrist, then his an embrace of mine. The cat, our relative equal in size but wonder and disparity, strolled up to sniff the crowns of our heads, our full cheeks, but we offered him no attention. My mother and father and Julia sitting on the couch, all laughed in disbelief at the way their endlessly curious infants had quickly adopted such a content with a tiny corner of the universe. The next part of this story, the one that would echo for decades afterwards. Julia moved to scoop Jackson from the floor. I left my quiet behind and howled with such force that the cat, still skirting the carpet for attention, panicked and ran. My mother came to me and attempted comfort. My father, at the door with Julia, shrugged and offered a comment about the volatile nature of young love, and they agreed to bring us together again very soon. My wailing gained confidence and rhythm. I refused even the draw of my mother's breast, as if I knew that her body would not be my family much longer, that I would find that elsewhere. That night, my parents broke their oath to leave me in the crib, no matter how upset, and brought me into their bed. They wondered at me where I lay between them, linked their fingers together, and over the heaving abdomen they created, sang me folk songs about low roads and high roads, told me the word for each part of me, whispered secrets about the ocean and the brain and the patterns of the earth, until finally I had calmed enough to listen. Thank you so much.